To start this look, I'm using Aide cream to block out my brows, and I'm first applying it with a little spatula tool, enough to fully cover all the hairs and a little bit of the surrounding brow area. I'm brushing the hairs back and forth to fully coat them and then brushing them all up in the natural direction of growth. With a little more product on the spatula, I'm going over to flatten them more, smoothing out the edges as I go. Once the Aide is tacky but no longer wet, I'm packing a colorless face powder over top to set, using a folded powder puff for a generous but more precise application. I'm lightly tapping over at first and then pressing harder to really pack it in. I'm then rolling over them with a little bit of pressure using a smooth brush handle, and this will help flatten the powder into some of the crevices. To block out the texture of the brows more, I'm going in with a second layer of the Aide cream to better fill in any gaps, smoothing over and packing powder over just as before. For this particular look, I didn't need my brows to be super smooth because I wanted an overall grungy and gritty look. So depending on the look you want to achieve, you can apply more layers as needed. Just be sure to blend out the edges so there's a smooth transition between the product and your skin. And if you don't have access to Aide, you can also use a washable glue stick, which I have used in pretty much all of my other tutorials. Then once I'm all done, I'm brushing away any excess powder. I'm then starting on the base with a white water-activated makeup on a domed foundation brush, and I'm stippling this over the entire face aside from the eye and mouth areas. For this look, I'm not worried about getting an even coverage, and I actually want a kind of splotchy, uneven look. I'm taking it down onto the neck as well, just down far enough to where my shirt collar is going to hit. I am applying more to the brows, the apples of the cheeks, down the nose, and to the chin for a more fuller opaque coverage in those areas. I'm then going in with a black eyeshadow on a fine detail brush to start marking out some of the details, first lining down from the corners of my mouth to create that separation for the mouthpiece. I'm curving these lines down under the chin and creating a little gap at the jawline for more separation, doing the same on the other side, and I'm not super worried about making these lines perfectly symmetrical. The beauty of this look is that nothing needs to be perfect, and we're kind of going for a rough feel overall. Then lining the eye sockets, starting at the inner area and working my way out, going back and forth between eyes to help me create the same basic shape for both eyes. On the outer area, I'm very lightly taking the lines out toward the temples, curving the top lines up slightly. These top and bottom lines are roughly parallel to each other. I'm making the upper inner corners just slightly less rounded so they come to a little bit more of a point rather than just rounding down. Then using a lighter gray eyeshadow on the same detail brush to lightly line around the brow areas in and up from those subtle corners we just created. Then switching it to a fluffy shadow brush, contouring down the sides of the nose, building up the color to deepen the shadows near the eye sockets, and bringing that nose contour to a little bit of a point at the tip of the nose. Also shading between the brows, blending out onto the forehead, and then going back in with the detail brush to darken at those inner corners, and define the brow area shape a bit more by lining up and around a little further. Then roughing out the contours of the temples, bringing that up around the outer brow area and then down around the cheeks. I wanted to subtly create Billy's face shape using my own bone structure, so I contoured under my cheekbones, but instead of curving down toward the corners of my mouth, I rounded under the apples of the cheeks and up toward the nose. I'm also shading on that whole outer portion of my jawline to help the cheeks really pop. We'll darken all these contours and shadows later, I just wanted to get a basic idea in there to start with. Then I'm lightly blending along those mouth lines, shading under and up the center of the chin to create a shadow for the cleft chin, and then just along the jawline as well. Blending the temple contour into the eye socket area and shading under and around the brow bones a little more, and smudging up onto the forehead. I'm switching back to the detail brush to define the cheek contours more, curving up and around the nostrils, then back to the blending brush to start deepening the shading under the cheeks. To get into tighter areas around the nose and to pack more along the edges of the cheek contour, I'm just squishing this fluffy brush so it's flat and more dense. And then when I need to blend out, it's just easier than switching back and forth from brush to brush. So here I'm just continuing to add to the shading until I like how it looks on the forehead, around the eye sockets, onto and under the cheeks, under the lower lip, and then later we'll go in and deepen everything. I'm using this duo fiber brush to start adding some messy shading to the neck, mostly stippling here to create a more splotchy look, then switching to the fluffy shadow brush for a little more defined splotchy shading. Then I'm going in with a red lip liner to create the lip shape and cheek swirls, first lining up and out from the corners of the mouth, then connecting those lines into a creepy little smile shape and filling in that entire area and the lower lip as well. Then I'm lining the cheek swirls, starting them just a little bit out from the center of my eyes. My cheek space ended up being just slightly too small, but I wanted to fit one more swirl in, so that's just something I needed to go back and fix later. I'm eyeballing straight over from the center of the first swirl, and again using the center of my eye as kind of a guide, so they start roughly in the same spot on both cheeks. And this lip liner step isn't totally necessary. You could just go straight in with a red body paint or lipstick, but this is just what I decided to do. I do feel like having this nice base was at least a little bit beneficial, so when I painted on the top layer, I didn't have to worry about it mixing in with the white base and turning more pink. So once I have everything lined, I'm applying a darker blood red liquid lipstick on a fine detail brush over top. And again, these don't need to be perfectly even and opaque. For the lips, I'm using the lipstick applicator to fill in the larger areas and then switching to the detail brush to get into the smaller areas and corners of the smile. Then to fix where I ran out of room on the cheeks, I'm going in with the white body paint on a small silicone dotting tool, and I'm stippling more white between those top swirl lines. I decided on this dotting tool over a brush so I didn't risk smearing the red around, and this would be easier to clean off of it if I did get any red on it. I needed to apply a couple layers of this white to really cover that red, and you want to be sure to let that first layer dry before applying the second. Then to make the separation of the bottom lip and chin more dramatic, I wiped off a little bit of the red at the corners of my mouth. And then the little Z baby wanted to say hi before we moved on. He really wasn't sure about this makeup look, and he kept staring at me from across the room. It was kind of hilarious. Anyway, then just going over with the white paint to the areas I just wiped off, using my finger to blend that out, then just cleaning up with the red with the liquid lipstick and detail brush. Then I'm going in with a black water-activated body paint on a flat brush to block out around the forehead down to the ears, and I'm blending this back into the hairline. I would also recommend blacking out the ears, and I'm not really sure why I didn't. And also, if you're going to do this over a wig and you're going to have a part in your hair, be sure to apply the black into your part and blend it into your hair as well. Then I'm blacking out the eye sockets, switching to a smaller flat brush to get the tighter areas, and kind of blending that out toward the temple. Also defining those mouth lines and thickening them as well, again to create more separation there. And I'm curving this line all the way up onto my lower lip. Then going in with a pencil brush with a little black eyeshadow to deepen the cleft chin and add some smudgy shading along the mouth lines and under the lower lip. Adding some rough shading to the smile as well along the edges, and then creating a darker shadow coming from the center of the lips and just making it look kind of messy and smudgy. Going in with a little more white on our original base brush to lighten the outer part of the eye sockets, and just using my fingers to smudge and blend that in. Now going in with the black eyeshadow on the fluffy brush to deepen our contours and add more smudging to the forehead. So we're darkening the temples, around and under the cheeks, around the nostrils, the inner part of the eye sockets, between the brow bones, just about everywhere we applied the gray eyeshadow earlier. You can make this as clean or as smudgy and dirty as you want to. I just went until I was happy with how it looked, so it just depends on the final look that you want. Then to really black out the eyes, I'm lining around the waterline with a black eyeliner, and you could also set this in place with the black eyeshadow so it's more matte. Lastly, since I had to modify that top part of my cheeks a little bit, I'm going in with a little more of the white body paint on the dotting tool to create a little highlight and separation between the swirls and the eye sockets. And then that is it for the makeup, so I really hope that you enjoyed this look, and if you have any questions, let me know down in the comments. I'm not sure yet if I'm gonna have time to have another tutorial up before Halloween, but thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.